This bait can hover and stall over that fish as you pulse it better than any type of jig head style presentation.
Might have to become a staple.
Flat out been catching these fish that literally won't bite anything else. It's not rigid, it's flexible. What is up, MFers? It is the end of summer, early fall period. It's slick, it's hot, it's humid, and the worst thing is the fishing is the toughest it is going to be all year long. I don't care if you're a bank fisherman, a pond fisherman, or if you're on a big sparkly bass boat that's got the live scope on it. We're out of the lake right now, and we've been throwing those big glide baits, those chopping style glides that we've been catching them on all summer, and they're swerving them. They're even swerving little tiny jig head minnow type things, even swerving a drop shot. But we found one sneaky little technique that I've been playing around with lately that is absolutely deadly, and we have been absolutely whacking them on it. It's this little rig right here called the hover shot. Now that might look a little bit like some other types of rigs we throw, but when you rig it up just like how we got it right here, it is absolutely deadly. In today's video, I'm gonna tell you guys exactly how you can go catch fish right now when they won't eat anything else. Okay. Don't know what just happened there. That guy stopped it, dude. He loved it. It's the only way we can catch them too. In the timber. I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. That's why you gotta have that silky smooth drag coleslaw. Thinks he's a lot bigger than he is. Oh, we got it right in the corner of his mouth. Nice, nice. And he's fat, fast metabolisms. Just switched up colors. He tossed my nail weight. I'm glad I just bought a bunch more of those. Little 6 cents juggle with the little hover shot rig. Might have to become a staple. I know so far it's already gonna become one. Deal. That's awesome, man. That's an effective little rig right there. Now, if you guys are like me and you follow a bunch of fishing pages on social media, you know, Instagram, Facebook, and of course YouTube, you've maybe heard of this newer technique that's been working really well out of Japan called the hover shot rig. The problem I have with a lot of those pages that are on Instagram is they simply post the hottest new technique and you see pictures of the bait or just little twitches of it underwater and see what it looks like in a fish tank. You don't actually learn anything about how to fish it or even if it catches fish at all. They just simply hop on the hottest trend to try to get some clicks and put some money in their pocket. You guys know we do our work out on the water, and when I find a technique that can catch fish, I want to share it with you guys and show you guys how you can apply it to your fishery to catch some more fish. This is literally the only bait we can get bit with today. It is so deadly effective. Let me show you guys quick how to rig it up, the components you're gonna need, and then I'm gonna go hop behind the trolling motor there and show you guys how to actually fish this bait. So looking at how it's rigged, and we're gonna rig a couple up in a second, you actually use a jig mold hook like this one from Do It Molds. It's a size #1, very, very small hook is what I used for this anyways. And you set it back from the head of that 6 cents juggle minnow. Now we're gonna talk about what different distances further back will do for what you're trying to accomplish and what the benefits are putting it closer to the head and further back. But the biggest thing with the hover shot rig is it is definitely set back. Right now it's, as you can see, probably closer to 3/8 of an inch, maybe closer to a quarter, somewhere in that 1/4 to 3/8 inch. And then the nose of this bait, you're going to put a nail weight. This is a type of nail weight that's not completely covered up by plastic. You can see the head still sticking out. Either of them work fine. This is what I had and pretty much threw in because you do go through a decent amount of terminal tackle. Really quick, let's look going up. I freaking love this new plastic shape from 6 Cents Fishing. It's called the Juggle Minnow. It's a 4-inch fluke type style bait with a forked tail. As you can see holding in my hand, ultra soft, and it comes in some of the best soft plastic colors I've ever seen. This is green pumpkin shad. We got coral shad. So many different hues. No matter what bait fish you're trying to match right there, you get a little bit more stained water, even though this is a natural bait. Look at that bait right there. It's a brand new bait and it's absolutely killer. Some of the Texas dudes that work in the office have kind of built it as like a chatterbait or a spinnerbait trailer. Guys have been smoking them on that. But I've been fishing this bait right here as a finesse bait. I threw it as a drop shot for smallmouth. I've been fishing it a ton on a similar rig called a biwa rig. And now we have been using it in this hover shot rig, and I think it's the best bait you could possibly use for it, and I'll show you why. You guys will see how good this thing looks underwater in a second. Of course, I will link all of these below, and don't forget, if you're gonna pick some of these up, use promo code MF10, save some money. I tell you guys that. This is a really cheap soft plastic too, which is another thing I really like. So here's the jig hook that I'm using. It is a Owner 5313, size number 1, a really, really small hook. There's actually companies that that make specific hooks for the hover shot. I know Ryugi makes one that's also very small, and it has a couple keepers on it. And a keeper is actually going to save you some money on plastics and help you from blowing out the plastic on this rig. The good news is, of course, I'm going to show you guys a little bit later how you can make a keeper that's way better than any hook on the market, homemade on your boat in a couple minutes. I digress. You're also going to need some nail weights. I have all different types and styles of nail weights. You can either use the type that's going to go all the way in your bait. It's going to be completely covered by plastic, or I've kind of been liking this style right here that has a smaller little portion and then sticks out in the front. It's not quite as natural, of course, as the head being gone, but I don't think that much lead or tungsten sticking out of your minnow is going to make that big of a difference. I've talked a lot so far, and it might seem really difficult, but this is a super simple bait to rig. I'll start off by putting the nail in the head of the bait. So we're going to take our nail. Size-wise, you're going to basically have to figure out what depth you want to fish this at, and that's a great thing about this. We'll talk about the applicability in a second. That I like more than throwing it as a jig head is you can actually fish it a little bit deeper and get it on the fish a little bit quicker, especially if you're fishing super deep water or fishing live scope like I like to. But don't think you're limited to having to have a $7,000 fish finder to be able to catch them. So what I've found on this bait is it's got one of the more blunt fronts, which makes it absolutely perfect for this technique. So you don't want to put it directly in the middle because we're going to need some room for our hook. We're going to aim, and it's keel weighted. As you guys can see, it's flat on top, it's keeled on the bottom, which is another reason it's great for this technique. Adding weight, adding hook further back to it is not going to cause it to really alter the action. So as you guys can see, we're going to put it there, kind of aim it towards the bottom. As you can see, it's going to keel that bait even more. If you guys know what keeling means, the weight's going to be perfectly centered in the bottom. Try to get that as perfectly centered as possible. We're going to take our jig hook. Basically, the first thing you're going to want to do is spear it deeper than you generally would. So like I told you when I was showing you the rig, it's good to go 1/4 to 3/8 inch back. I would say right about there. And this is an important rig to get dialed straight in. You want everything to be rigged straight. I think that's something people just don't take enough time to do and understand the importance of when catching big fish and lots of fish, is rigging a bait perfectly straight and accurate. But you're going to plunge that thing deeper than if you're just, say, skin hooking a drop shot or something like that, and you'll see why in just a second. And I would generally like to have this tied onto my leader before I do this, but quite simply, plunge it in about midway through the bait to make up for that offset. Thread it perfectly straight. You're going to bring it out, and as you can see, the reason you plunged it in was you're dang near going to hide that thing, that hook eye, as deep as possible. And that is your daggum hover shot rig. I'm going to nickname this damn thing the hover juggle though, because I'm fishing it a different way than most people say. Because when I saw this bait on Instagram, and where I was kind of going with that is, I don't necessarily mean to throw shade at anyone's page or anything on Instagram, or anyone that would just show a technique and not actually go fish it or explain how to fish it. But when I saw this rig on Instagram, I saw it hanging perfectly vertical in a fish tank. And I was like, damn, that looks good, because you don't have to have your drop, it's different than a drop shot because you don't have to have your drop shot weight down below it. And it's different than a jig head minnow, like this biwa rig right here, in that it's not going to hang like that because it's off center. When you get that hook eye put in the right spot with the right size nail weight, this thing will sit perfectly horizontal underwater. And so what I thought it was a vertical bait. And every single thing I'm seeing on these social media pages is, oh, it's great for suspended fish, great to just drop straight below the boat when you see a fish below the boat. Well, maybe that's true. I'm sure it would work like that, but that's not how I'm fishing this thing. Another person I reached out to, since I talked to him a lot about different finesse rigs and stuff, because he's an expert and he knows a lot more about some of these finesse rigs than I do, but we kind of bounce ideas and teach each other stuff, is Austin Felix you saw on my channel from the Elite series. And I sent this to him and he's like, yeah, dude, that's a hover shot rig. And I was like, well, actually, I've been fishing it and casting it And you should see how amazing this thing looks the way I'm fishing it and really stalling it in the water column. And he's like, oh, that's different. Never done that before. He said he fishes it, and this is how I've heard a lot of people fish baits like this, just fishing it like a Ned rig, giving them a different presentation than a finesse tube, a Ned rig, and just kind of dragging it, hopping it on the bottom. Let me show you how I am fishing this bait that I think is just insanely effective, and it's just flat out been catching these fish that literally won't bite anything else. So you guys know I obviously have live scope on my boat. It's very helpful for this technique if you're gonna fish it the way I'm going to, but you don't have to have it. When there's shad dimpling the surface at your lake, like it is right back here behind me, there's gonna be bass around them. You'll see them busting, blowing up sometimes. And when you're not able to catch them on the jerk bait, on the top water, on the chopping swim bait, like we have been lately, I've even thrown this bait at them a whole bunch today. Did a little simple jig head, 2.5-inch swim bait. And they're laughing at it, guys. They don't want anything to do with it. I don't know what it is about it, but they just flat out don't want it. That's when this system is extremely effective. Before you even make a cast with this bait system right here, it's important to be able to throw it a long ways and to be able to fight the fish properly, or you're never gonna get into the boat and you're never gonna get your bait to them. I always throw this 7.4 medium light, this Milliken spinning rod from 6 cents. I caught a freaking almost 13-pound bass on it last winter. It handles big fish, it casts tiny, tiny baits, whether it's this little system right here, a little tiny jig head swim bait, even little tiny hair jigs that weigh a 1/16 or a 32nd of an ounce. This is the rod I throw it on. And as far as I'm concerned, it's the cheapest rod that you can effectively fish those techniques. Another very important thing, of course, with the long cast is to have small braided line as your main line. This is 8-pound test. I think it's Suffix 832, but any 6 or 8-pound braid, high quality braid, with an 8-pound leader, you could go as low as 6 or 5-pound leader. Or if you're going after big fish, of course, you definitely, or around heavy cover, you want 10-pound, but I think 8's a good size in the middle for it. And then of course, if you're gonna be fighting these fish on a light line, you got a chance at double-digit fish, you want that ultra smooth drag all the way through. Shimano Stratic, almost impossible to beat. 2500 size, you guys know that's my favorite reel. And the great thing is they are never on sale and they are very hard to get. Unless you guys go to Baitworks, I'll link them below. Use that MF10 code, and again, save yourself some money, get them cheaper than anywhere else, and they're in stock. So why wouldn't you? But let's get into how to fish it. The reason this time of year is so tough is because the bass get on those big balls of threadfin shad. So quite simply, if you see bass blowing up bait and you're having a hard time catching them on anything else, or you have a really clean water fishery like the one we're fishing today where the fish like to suspend to be really tough, you can throw this bait without having to have that live sonar. And the great thing is, the cleaner the water is, the further they will come to eat this bait right here. But if I'm seeing fish on my screen, obviously, I'm gonna make a cast of this fish. If I didn't have live scope, or not really be able to see them, because a lot of these shad schools are literally right under the surface. They are right up in the grass and everything. God, Cole, just ridiculous out there. I need to stop casting at fish so I can film this damn segment. It's like the 4th time we've done it, and we've been catching fish every single time I've been casting it. But how I fish this bait is I'll find that bait school or that fish, I'll make a long cast to it, get it out away from the boat, and you're simply gonna let it, you count it down to whatever. I just freaking had one eat it on the fall, Cole. I just didn't even cast to a fish and he came out of nowhere and ate it. I will let that bait go down to whatever depth range I'm seeing the fish at, and it's important with a live scope, you fish it above their heads, and really if you don't have live scope too, you want to, those fish are always going to be feeding up on that balled up shad, but you're quite simply just going to shake the slack in your line as you reel it, and sometimes they want just a couple short twitches, and sometimes you really have to be popping it. But that's why the physics of this rig are very important. If I was throwing this bait on a fixed jig head and the hook eye was back here on the head, when I twitched this thing, it would probably rock from like right there and just do that in the water column. And that's not very, I don't know, it's not that lifelike. The tail doesn't have a ton of action like that. I've been catching fish like that, but not as many as when I started throwing it as a hover shot. What I'm talking about is when you're pulling from this pull point right here, it's almost like a wacky rig effect where the middle of the bait gets pulled and that causes the whole bait to kind of collapse and expand, and it makes that tail jump and almost makes it quiver. And what it also does is you're not pulling directly on the head, so it's not moving the bait forward. There's drag in the water column, and it's the same principle as when I'm trying to weight my glide bait, so it's just barely sinking. I think a lot of people think I'm weighting these swim baits so they sink 82 feet per second to get it down to fish. no, it's got to be extremely slow sink because you want that bait to work and stay in the strike zone on that fish's face as long as possible. As the name suggests with this rig, the hover shot, this bait can hover and stall over that fish as you pulse it better than any type of jig head style presentation. Yahtzee. See my bait? Gone. Dude, I'm a hover shotting magician. Yahtzee. So weird seeing a bear jig hook in his mouth. So I've been getting them on today, guys. Just no lure or anything. Bear hook. That's how tough it is. A little bit better one. Dude, that was badass. 4 of them there that side. That's a better one too. Get out of that tree. Yahtzee. Please don't get stuck in a tree. Don't do it to me. Cole, can't you see? He's not happy at all. Gotta get used to this for the Elite Series next year. You bet, dog. Deal. That was too fun right there. That is the best one we've caught on that thing. And honestly, this fish suspended next to a piece of timber with 3 of his buddies. I hopped that freaking hover shot in his face and he just like you think he should. I like that a lot. You bet. There it is. I just switched up to this more natural see-through color of the juggle. Probably get that hook back in so you can see the rig. And I've been getting better bites on it for sure. So I'm gonna keep slinging that around some of these suspended fish. This is a tough bite, guys. Bluebird, slick, calm, clean water. It's nice to apply things and not just read about them, right? Get on back there, girl. What a release. What a release. Turn over. There she goes. Deal. Let's do that again. One thing I really like about this hover shot over just a traditional style jig head swim bait or something like that, like everyone fishes, is that you can actually stop it next to the boat. For those of you guys that have live scope or really fish clean water fisheries, you know, a lot of times you pull that bait in and you have 17 of them following it all the way to the boat. And when you get a jig head swim bait to the boat, I don't care how finesse it is, you're not going to be figure 8 and going around in circles around the boat. If you stop it next to the boat, those fish, every single one of them do this. You've seen it every time on live scope. This presentation, when you hold it next to the boat, you can just jiggle it in their face and it's sitting perfectly horizontal, almost like a drop shot would. So it's like you get the benefits of both rigs. You can fish it horizontally by casting it out at the fish, and then when a fish follows it in, or if you did see a fish struck below the boat, then you can fish it vertically, like I think a lot of people think of this rig as a vertical presentation directly over the top of fish you see on downscan or 2D or something like that. Hover. Juggle it. Hover juggle. Shoot us. Okay. Have one on. Oh, what do you know? I thought this guy was like a pound. He must just be mad. Oh, he's decent. God dang, they are chewing this thing. And I will take it. These are just like roaming fish in the middle of nowhere. Been throwing the little ball head swim bait to them. Crazy. Couldn't even get one to look at it. I threw a drop shot into a school that was on the bottom earlier and they didn't even touch it. Deal. These ain't the 6 to 10 pounders that we target a lot of times on this channel. But there was another bass boat here today. He left about 20 minutes into it. All right, he was here for about an hour, but I guarantee it wasn't because he was crushing them. Look at that. One after another. If you're fishing a clean water summer tournament with schoolers right now, I think you'd take the 15-pound limit we're putting together. Okay, so I talked to you guys about this at the start of the video, but they make specific hooks with keepers that aren't going to constantly blow out your plastic right there where that hook eye meets. And you don't go through as many plastics. And we're about to have arts and crafts time. I'm going to show you guys how you can make your own keeper on there, so you don't run through all these plastics like I am today. Blown my cricket! Well, I think after this one, it's going to have to be arts and crafts time, Cole. You ready for the arts and crafts time?
Yep.
Yeah, arts and crafts, presented by colonoscopy. It'd be great to have one of the specific hover shot hooks that has a nice keeper on it so you don't blow through a million of these 6-inch juggles. But we're gonna do something that I've done in the past on a lot of my hooks, and that is we're gonna make our own keeper that's gonna work just as well. And all we're gonna need for that is, I mean, this is kind of weird that I keep this on the boat, but I do in fact keep a bobbin on the boat, and this is one of the reasons, on top of putting rod guides on and stuff like that. But we're gonna need a bobbin. Braid works great. This is some thread. We're gonna do this really janky and cheap and easy. Gonna need that jig hook. This is that little size 1, number 1 owner 5313. That's what I use for my Ned heads. And then we're gonna need a jig. The reason for the jig's very simple. We're gonna take one piece of the weed guard and we're gonna snip it off. Oh, and we're gonna need super glue and something to cut with. So we're gonna take that one piece and we're gonna fold him in half. This is actually Aaron Martin's trick. You can look up an old video of Aaron. He's who I got this from, and it is the best keeper that I've ever put on any hook. It's a little bit time consuming, and I made it way back like 3 or 4 years ago in a video, I think. We're gonna fold that jig skirt keeper over until it just makes a V, like so. And then we're gonna use this as a vise, because I don't have a vise on the boat. So one good thing to do is do this and not on the boat, but do it in the winter, you know. That's not even gonna work. Don't do it now, is what I'm saying. Don't be like me. We just need that joker to hold it a little bit. Cole's about to be my vise in a second. We're just gonna put some wraps on that hook. Little hitch knots to lock it on there. This is gonna be so tough to do right now, actually, without a vise. There we go. All right, now that that's good to go. But we're just gonna put some wraps down on the hook shank where that keeper is gonna go. And that's just gonna keep the keeper from sliding. So you can actually do this on EWG style hooks, and maybe I'll make a specific video about it at some point here. And it makes the best keeper to save plastics. But we're gonna take this guy and we're not gonna need all of it. So we're gonna cut it. You have to leave that big V shape, but it's gonna end up about that long. And really it's something that you're gonna have to eyeball to get it right. But what you want your V to do is, you're gonna want it to, it's gonna create your keeper. You're gonna put the bend side up, and you can put on the back of the hook, if that makes any sense. Like I said, this is impossible without a vise. We're gonna want our keeper to be up like that. It'll make more sense when I'm done, if I ever am able to finish this, of course. And it's such a simple, easy keeper, but I've used it for a long time. I think Aaron in the video used like 10-pound or 8-pound braid. He wound that onto his spindle, and that would probably be stronger than this thread. But for a little finesse bait, a little finesse one like this thread is plenty strong enough on a little light line rig. You would definitely want that though if you're going to be punching or something like that. But the reason this is such a good keeper and so effective is it's not going to tear that super soft plastic that you have in the baits you're going to use, like this juggle for this technique. And it's not going to tear it because it's not rigid, it's flexible. And it's just going to hold it on there just nice. I think that other one that Ryugi makes has another keeper down here, or it might come out, I think it comes out this way because your hook's going to have a tendency to pull up and out. So it kind of has a double keeper. We're just going to do one for now because Cole looks so bored back there. But to finish this knot, we're just going to simply do, I'll just cut it actually. We'll do just a couple half hitches, hit it with a dab of super glue, and then it's ready to fish. But again, if you're not familiar with what a half hitch is, just a simple overhand knot basically that you can make. It's a lot easier to do when, once again, you have a vise. One would probably be good. Let's do two quick. Boom. I know somewhere, hopefully Aaron is smiling down with people carrying on his tinkering on the water. The best tinker of all time. And that is our keeper right there. The most simple keeper that you guys are probably sitting there laughing, thinking it looks dumb. And if I had more time, I would do this on every single hook I own. Just a little dab of super glue. And that's it for you guys that can't see that. Look good, Cole? Mm-hmm. Deal. Got our hook with the keeper tied on, and we're quite simply gonna do the same thing we did before. Go in about 1/4 inch to 3/8 of an inch behind the tip of that bait. Get it on perfectly straight. And we're just gonna suck that keeper right down in, and I'm gonna focus on lifting this up and pulling it away so when it comes back down, that keeper is gonna grab that plastic more. There we go. Throw our weight back in and we're ready to rock, Cole. Ready to blast some. I definitely don't need to worry about sparing the super glue as much because I think we're going to lose a lot less baits now. Yahtzee! Hello, good to see you. It's been minutes since I've seen him last. This has been so much more effective than anything today. My drag was like, nope, at least it works. Look at those guys down there eating the real thing. That's the problem, Cole. Sneaky little, look at this. This didn't even blast my damn hook out of there while fighting from that keeper. Went the other direction. Fat boy. Deal. And I get to use the bait again. I don't hate that. I give you the hover juggle. You saw it. Oh. Oh. Got him. Not as big as I thought, but you bet. Dude, this is the only way you could catch the individuals. I understand the wolf packs. You guys are like, oh yeah, schooling fish, anything. Wrong. This one's by himself, freaking suspended, hardest damn fish to catch on the planet. I feel like a little Japanese man on the shores of Lake Biwa with people shoulder to shoulder right now, just working my little finesse techniques. This is 1 pound test, by the way. Had to downsize to 1 pound test. This is a 4/8 ultralight rod. Yeah, bud. Good fish, man. I mean, we're 15, 7, well, we're probably bigger than that. We probably got 17 by now. It's 3.5 plus. 3.5. We had one about 4. Deal. My plastic's getting blowed out. I'm just working further and further down towards the tail, and they're liking it. One thing I've noticed too, when you slide it, the further back you slide it, and once again, just like when we talked about the physics of this rig back at the beginning of the video, is the more drag you have on the nose, when you're twitching it, it'll give it more of a darting side-to-side action. Now, it'll also make that bait ride in the water column not parallel, which is obviously less attractive to the fish. But I mean, that one followed it for 10 feet slowly and made the move. So clearly it's not that unnatural to them. But yeah, the further you move the hook eye from the front of the bait down, it's going to give it more of a side-to-side. Crazy fun way to catch them, guys. Have caught a lot of fish today that I guarantee I would not have caught on other techniques. It's always fun learning new techniques. This is not something I have mastered. And even though I showed you guys exactly how to rig this bait and how to fish this bait, it's not something that is 100% going to apply to your fishery. So go out and see how they react. Send me any messages, comment below if you have any questions about how I fish this or how I rig this bait system. This was super fun, and this is a public body of water with a couple boats that I've already left today because the fishing was tough. I don't think it's been that tough.